Hey there, everybody. This is Kaylee McMahon. You already know me and you've seen my face all over our educational materials. Today, I get an opportunity to bring somebody really special in who's had a huge impact on my life personally. And we're going to spend a little bit of time not talking about real estate assets, not talking about cash flow, not talking about all of the ins and outs and the gold nuggets that I've learned over the years, but a little bit more about the gold nuggets that I've learned not from my industry, but from a general business perspective, emotional perspective, spiritual perspective. There's so much with your mental health that really has to be in order for you to be able to have enough self-belief and enough confidence, I think, to go into a male-dominated industry. And this doesn't even just apply to commercial real estate. I think it applies to engineering. It applies to like the oil industry. I mean, all kinds of other industries that are male-dominated, tech, for example. But so what I wanted to do is bring on Megan McKeehan today. She has been a huge part of my life for a few years now. And Megan, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I won't do it justice.
So my name is Megan McKeehan, and I am a licensed professional counselor intern at the Turning Point, and we are a sexual violence rape crisis center. So we do advocacy, we do rape kits, and then we do counseling. So we're kind of like a one and all place. And that's where I work. And I work in our Dallas satellite office as a counselor.
Thank you, Megan. So one of the things that, and everybody's journey is different, right? When you decide that you're ready to go to counseling or to be able to reach out to somebody for advice, really good ideas, really is what it's been for me. We're all wanting different objectives. For me, when I started, it was, okay, I just want to have healthy relationships. I just want to know like what that looks like and how I can have that, because I didn't feel personally like I even deserved it, was what it kind of built or worked down to. And that's in my head. You know what I mean? So it just took a while to even get that going, to believe not only do I deserve it, but how to find it and how to ask for it, and how to only accept that in my life. And then I think that's part of this couple of points I wanted to cover today of kind of how do we build ourselves up to be able to believe in ourselves and have self-confidence and be able to be a good leader, because we all have. I have, many of my friends have, that little guy in your head that's like, you're not good enough, you're not old enough, you're not smart enough, whatever it is. And if you let that, drone out your other thoughts or your genius ideas, you'll never get anywhere, ever. So how do you build up that confidence to be able to lead and listen to those inner voices that are creative and that are, that are there?
Sure, yeah. There's a lot I could say to this question, I'm sure. And you're right, everyone's journey is different. What we experience, trauma, right, and things like that take us on different paths. But I think at the very basic level, if you want to build self-love, confidence, a very simple exercise that I tell people is every day look yourself in the mirror and name 5 things that you love about yourself, right? So retraining our brain, because I think so many times through our own experiences, we get caught in this habit, this reflex of negative self. We felt that, right? But it's not truth. It's not reality. And so kind of the idea of being that person that steps in and says, no, that's not true. This is what I want to believe, right? And so practicing that, right? Practicing those beliefs and finding things that we love about ourselves is really simple, can be as simple as that, as practicing that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why you kind of promoted me when I had this idea. And I forgot where I got it from. Well, actually, no, where I got it from was in my first closing that I ever did, a big time multifamily deal that, again, I obviously had that little guy in your head that's saying stuff. Even if someone's not saying that you can't do it, that's just, again, it's there. So it was taking a printed off fake version of my closing statement and then printing it out and putting it on my fridge and seeing that I closed, a fake congratulations statement. You close congratulations with your actual name on it, the date, the purchase price, that stuff. So you're putting it in front of you and you're accepting that it's true. But then also, I think that one thing I did and I told you about was that during COVID, because this is in 2021 that we're recording this, I went through a time period where I had a lot of self-doubt, and it lasted for a long time. Mm-hmm. And one way that helped me a little bit, just a tiny bit, was to write down kind of like a resume, because where I'm at in my industry, you don't really need a resume. You just kind of need a statement of real estate owned. You need different things for your experience vouching or for your experience. And so I wrote down every time I gained a new skill. So during the lockdown, I was like, okay, I read these books. Okay, I got certified as a notary. Okay, I closed on a deal. Okay, just every time I did something, even down to little things that aren't, it's not actually like a certification. It's not like a degree. It's not like a big accomplishment, like getting way better at negotiating, like being a strong negotiator or something like that. Yeah. So that was something that I did to go, oh, I'm kind of a badass,
Absolutely. And I think it's a good point to make that finding things that we're good at or things we love ourselves should not always be extrinsic, right? So it should not always be external outside of ourselves of something we've done or did or going to do, right? There also needs to be that internal, right? I, got better at negotiating. I handled that really well. I reacted, like those kinds of things, because those are just as important as I closed that deal or, those extrinsic value type things, and I think a lot of times we can get stuck in that, especially right now with COVID when maybe we're not capable of like making those extrinsic things happen as fast, right? And so we feel not successful, not valued because they're not, but like you said, there are things we're doing all the time, those small things that we really need to value and pay attention to and be in the moment, give ourselves that, wow, you did that. Wow. Whether it's better at negotiating or you got out of bed and you showered and you got ready and you didn't have to. I mean, right.
There was a week of that. Things. Yeah. There was a week of that. Like I needed just to put pants on. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Super important.
Now, I think something that I picked up from what you just said was some of what we need to think about is, as self-love is also self-belief. And here's something I hear a lot about women in particular, and especially people that are doing things that seem kind of like if you step away from what you do and you look at it from everybody else's perspective who maybe doesn't know all of the, tricks and tricks of the trade, I guess. Like I make partnerships with certain people. We can take down huge deals that normal people would stare at and go, no way. Can you buy a building that's $30 million? I was like, well, we put the right people in place. Yes, we can. So a lot of that is self-belief. And so part of like self-belief, women I hear all the time suffer from imposter syndrome to where, we see these things that we're like, yeah, we can do them. And then how do you beat imposter syndrome to have self-belief? That's...
it's interesting because I actually just read something about imposter syndrome because imposter syndrome is big in a lot of fields. In my field, people feeling like, I'm not worthy of my license. I'm not worthy, right? I'm not really a counselor. People just think I'm faking it, right? That imposter syndrome of like not really believing that you're worthy and of value of whatever the profession is or whatever the deal is. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to looking at it like, what do you want to believe and training yourself that way, right? So when we have those imposter thoughts, stopping those thoughts and saying the thoughts that we want to believe, like, no, I know that I'm worthy of this. I worked hard to do this. I know that I know how to do this, right? If we didn't have those things, we wouldn't be there in the first place. And not letting it suck you into that hole, right? Really being aware of what that imposter syndrome looks like. So when those thoughts creep in, whether it's in a deal, it's in a conversation with somebody, it doesn't
a romantic relationship.
Right? In a relationship, absolutely. Yeah. You don't let it suck you in, right? You're able to basically take the power away from those thoughts because that's really what it feels like. Like those thoughts come in and they have so much power over us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really just acknowledging like those thoughts are my imposter syndrome and they're not true. What they're saying are not true. Right. And being, I think, transparent about that with ourselves instead of like trying to just shove it down when those thoughts come in and denial, like just acknowledging where those thoughts come from and then how you want them to look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it made me think of something because like where you're getting those thoughts from and what you choose to believe in. Sometimes people, there's criticism out there all the time. And people unsolicited give their opinion, give their ideas, and they want to put that on you. And really, it's just maybe even advice they picked up somewhere and they're just offloading to you because they don't really know any better. But there's two kinds of criticism that I've realized that are very different. And so, for example, I've noticed that there is There's positive criticism, or I guess somebody that's criticizing your weaknesses is I call it good criticism, because it's like a coach that's like, okay, you're being lazy today. You're not getting up. You're making excuses. You're in your comfort zone. Like, seriously, suck it up. I know you can do better, because they believe in you and they've seen the better side of you, and that they know you have so much potential there. And so sometimes it's hard to listen to that, but then to stop for a second and go, okay, well, this person is telling me something I kind of already know, but I just am comfortable in my comfort zone. And so, I could listen to them and push it and get better, or just not get better. Whereas there's criticism where someone's criticizing your strengths, and I call that negative criticism, and it's very insidious. I feel like a lot of people don't see it coming until maybe like me years later. You explore and you go, oh my God, they were saying that to control you, because somebody that, for example, that you've believed that I am the best mom. I get up every day and I take care of my kids and I feed them and I do everything I can to work 15 jobs, and I'm doing literally everything that I can do.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing somebody in a romantic relationship, or you have a family member or whatever, and that person is sitting there saying, "Oh, you're late to come get your kids all the time, and you stay up too late with your kids. You feed them junk food." Like, they're criticizing your biggest strength that you know that you're the best at in your life, and they're doing it because inside your head you're questioning yourself and going, oh, maybe I am really bad at that. And so then they're controlling you through criticizing your strengths. So I have to really pay attention to other stimulus, or even sometimes my own, listen, trying to figure out, like, what am I good at and what am I not. Anyway, I guess I'm trailing off a little bit, but pretty much just there being two different kinds of criticism. And I think that, focusing on your strengths and knowing those strengths really, and then owning those strengths really will help you to avoid a lot of negative influences in your life that, maybe seem like they're coming across as giving you wisdom or helping you, but really they're just trying to control you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we've all heard the term like constructive criticism. And, to me, I think the difference in like just unwarranted criticism, toxic criticism, and constructive criticism is very similar to what you're saying. There's definitely like a power aspect, right? There's I'm trying to gain some kind of power or fear over you, right? And then with constructive criticism, I feel like they're validating how you feel, but they're still wanting to push you to do better. And that is the biggest difference, right? And that's kind of exactly what you said. Because I think, somebody that cares about you, cares how you feel, cares what you're going through, right? They're not going to just shove that aside. But they're also not doing it to get some kind of power or control over you. And that's, in your industry, I'm sure that happens quite
all
a bit.
the time. That was a big thing to learn, is like that power dynamic is so off, and you have to really, especially as the minority group, you have to be really aware of things that are like just normal or norms to all these people, because I'm not the norm. So whether it's the way I want to be talked to or the way that I get my hand shaken or whatever it is, like, it's going to be different. So being able to pick up on those things that, even when I go to conferences now, there's so much like perverse language that I hear that I'm just like, I used to actually participate in it. Then COVID happened, and then I got away from it for a long time. And then I started surrounding myself with strong women kind of only. And then I go there and I see this language. And I'm like, this doesn't have any place in my life. And all it does is demean the more intelligent things that I have to say instead, Yeah. So I just don't participate anymore. But one thing,
it's interesting too about that language, because although we don't, we don't, participate in language or not, but just
because you want to be part of the group.
Yeah. And just being around that language and hearing it, I mean, it really has like a subconscious effect on the way that we view ourselves. Because if you're in with a group of males and having a inappropriate conversation to be part of the group, eventually one day you're going to be outside the group and you're going to be questioning, are they thinking that way about me? Right? It just kind of feeds into that same self-doubt, self-belief, right? And I love what you said, that it had no place in my life anymore. And
I find it,
you know,
because I think what I did was I figured out by interviewing other women that have been around a lot longer than me and had to deal with the same kind of dynamic, you know, like I just now call it unprofessional behavior. I'm just like, that's just not professional behavior. Because if you look at, you know, the verbiage or the amount of drinks that we go have or the cigars that we have or whatever, I'm going, is that making us money? Is that having us tour a deal? Is that, again, over the lockdown, I've spent time with people that have actually pushed me when I wanted to, like I said, take the day off on a Wednesday and go to this person to their meetings. They were like, no, you're not going with me today. You're going to go tour some deals and go buy some stuff. You know, you're going to go beat the street and go, you know what I mean? Get yourself a deal. And that's what ended up happening, of course. But, you know, so again, like now even going out, you know, the COVID thing kind of broke down. What am I really spending my time with? Who am I really spending my time with? Because you become the 5 people that you hang around. So I'm going, do I really want to be part of this boys club? And the guys that are sitting there saying these things or behaving this way, like, are they actually closing deals? Are they meeting the objectives that I set for myself to do for my business and to grow our business and to take on more associates and all these things? Not really. Like, if you really go, so I've just decided to, you know, forget about it. So again, figuring out who you have in your life that is either supporting you or already in your direction where you want to go. That's where I kind of wanted to go next in this conversation, was talking about resiliency. Resiliency was something that I think has made me very strong after the lockdown or during or whatever, because I was forced to go, okay, I can't leave my house. I can't network. I can't hunt. I can't, you know, go raise money like I normally do. I can't do what I do. And it affected so many different business models, not just mine or different industries. But, you know, the only thing I had left to do was to go, okay, well, what do I have to work with? Okay, there's a bunch of stuff up here. Okay, so I'm going to start writing a book, and I'm going to make a blog, and I'm going to do certain things that makes, like, cost a couple dollars and make some money off of that because it's what I have, or reach back out to those colleagues that I did one deal with and see if they want to do another deal together. You know, do they have any leads? Do they have any money? Do I have any leads? Do I have any money? You know, how can we work together again and again and again? And so that causes deeper relationships. And so I've gone through some really, really difficult business struggles in the last year. And anyone I think that's going to make it in business kind of has to go through some really scary stuff sometimes, at least once in their life, you know. And when that's happening, when you have people that are solid and they'll stick by your side and they truly know you, that didn't come from me hunting and hunting. It came from these resilient relationships where I had to focus on what I had. And so that's also provided me a sense of calm and pride too, in that, you know, when I introduce people to these people, it's not willy-nilly. I'm very careful who I introduce these people to, because I want to make sure they're just as quality as this other person. It's not just, you know, whatever. If this other person I introduce them to harms them, I would never live it down, you know, in my head. So becoming a little more calm as well, knowing that I have them and knowing that I don't have a need to go seek for more all the time, that has also really helped with even having self-confidence, because I'm like, okay, well, these people believe in me enough and they know me and my soul and what, you know, me well enough to back me up when things get tough. So I think resiliency is a big part of self-confidence. Would you agree?
Sure, absolutely. And, you know, I want to say, because you talked a lot about like the people you've surrounded yourself with and how you've built these different relationships up. And let me tell you, the people who surround us directly affect all these things we're talking about: self-blame, self-love, you know, whether or not we do which one or the other, resilience, right? All these things that we're talking about that we want to do, who we put ourselves around directly affects all of those things. Can make it better, can make it worse, right? In so many different ways. And so I think 2 things: really looking at who we surround ourselves with. Are they going where I want to go? And that can be very difficult sometimes, because we're not just talking either about,
I've had to cut off my family. I've had to cut off my close friends from high school. And it's not like I'm cutting them off like, I hate you, don't ever talk to me again. No, it's just like I just kind of stop responding. Or when I do, I wait for them to ask me some kind of intelligent question or challenging question or something that's going to lead somewhere, not just like fluff talk. And otherwise, I'm just like, you know, I got to go work. I got to go have meetings. I got to go bathe, whatever, anything else, you know? So exactly. And that's one thing when it comes to mentors, like I write about in my book, Women in Multifamily Real Estate. When you're looking for a mentor, it's just truly, and you're taking advice from someone, it's like looking at the person who's talking and going, have you done what I am going to do or want to do or plan to do? If not, why am I listening? because
Yeah,
they're just
absolutely.
guessing. They don't know. They're just listening to other crap they've heard from other people and repeating it.
Yeah. And, choosing somebody to put ourselves around a mentor, not only their business model, but their life model. How do they live their life? How do they handle things? How do they view things? Because that's going to directly affect us and our business 100%, right? If they make a whole bunch of money, but they're irate and go off the handle all the time, that's not really the best, right? We don't want to be like that. Eventually, that's going to lead somewhere not so good, right? So really seeing that there's a balance of both, like your business model and the way you perceive life, the way you do life. And,
do I want to be like that person? Yeah.
I liked how you mentioned, I don't just cut these people off. Really, we're just putting boundaries in place to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And boundaries are so important with our family, with a significant other, with colleagues,
a landlord. I mean, I had something happen 2 days ago where I got a text that said miscommunication, misunderstanding, it always is, but instead of coming at someone like I try to, and I'm not perfect, don't get me wrong, but taking a pause, taking a breather, I'm pissed, I really am, but then I breathe instead, and I'm like, I always put in the message or the call or whatever, I must have missed something, or maybe I'm too thick to understand, or maybe taking the offensive position, not defensive, I don't know. Yeah. So have them explain it to you, but, don't give me that crap, Kaylee. And I'm like, whoa,
wow.
Nobody talks to me like that, period. I don't care who you think you are. And so that kind of gave me a perspective on that person where I'm starting to now make some other plans. And, when that came across my phone, my immediate response was I wanted to respond. I wanted to correct her. But you know what? I didn't even respond. I just stopped responding completely. I went dark. And then I gave it a day so that, because I guarantee you, because you got to make these people think about what they're doing. Why would Kaylee be responding then all of a sudden nothing? And it's because I wanted to go reread that and question herself and maybe realize, I'm reading it now and that wasn't cool or whatever,
Sure, yeah.
So, but yeah, then time to make other plans and put things together to take care of yourself. And if that ever happens again, then it would have to be a hard boundary. Last time this happened, it's happening again. I will be leaving within this time frame.
Absolutely. And I was just about to mention, boundaries isn't responding back to her being like, don't, speak to me like that and cussing her out or, we can simply say, whether it's then, 24 hours later, or when we want to, please do not speak to me like that. If you speak to me like that again, our conversation will be I will communicate less or whatever, right? Your boundary. I won't, I will leave or whatever the case is, right? Calmly and simply.
And putting it in a me sense, that's the best way to do it. Like you always tell me. So
absolutely.
For example, responding saying, I don't allow people to speak to me that way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it 24 hours and I may respond, I may not. Period. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. Boundaries are very, very important. So yes, couldn't agree more.
So then we've talked a little bit about self-belief, self-love, resiliency. How about self-care? This is something I think that it's all over social media and go to the spa. And that's literally what I used to think self-care was. I used to think, okay, if I go spend a day and get comatose once a month and get pedicures and whatever, I'll be all good. And it didn't work. What is the gamut of self-care?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, self-care is something that we think like that. If I have a blow-off day, that's self-care. Self-care is something that we need to be practicing daily. It is a daily thing. And it can be going to the spa. That can be a once in a blue moon self-care, but there should be other things. It should be, I'm taking 5 minutes to breathe in the morning also. That's self-care. I'm taking a hot bath at night. I'm washing my face. I'm using essential oils. All those things are self-care. Self-care is about a space in which to rest and relax without the hecticness of the world, right? And that means not only what we're experiencing, but also what we might be dealing with, right? on the side of trauma or healing from that, right? Just all of those things. And because we can't
sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure, I always say, eating and sleeping. If we aren't doing those two things, we're not doing self-care right there,
Water,
right off the bat. Absolutely. Yeah. Hydrating. I have a book right here. It says it's self-care, daily self-care checklist. And it says like how many water glasses I drink. Did I take 5 deep breaths? How do I feel in this moment? And it's just that check-in, because that self-care is checking in with where am I at? What am I feeling? And how do I handle it? Because when we don't handle it.
How do I handle it?
It comes out in other ways, right? It will eventually come out in a moment we don't want it to.
Yeah.
Or cause us to be emotionally overwhelmed, and we can't do anything in that space of emotionally overwhelmed. We, like, on a biological level, our prefrontal cortex has switched off, and we are only thinking from our amphibian reptile brain. So it's just so important that we give ourselves that space in which to check in and rest and relax. And that can look like so many different things. But it's a daily thing. It's not a monthly thing.
That's why the best, whenever needed, like literally if it's daily, if it's every 5 minutes, doesn't matter. One of the best things I've learned is to sleep on it. That's my phrase. Like, in negotiations, it's the first place I learned it, but now I use it constantly. Like whenever I feel like overwhelmed or flustered or like, like I want to fly off the handle or whatever, I just kind of look at it and then go, can I change it? Okay, can't change it. So now I'm going to sleep on it and then go get some ideas and then try to come back at it kind of from a, I felt this way, or I didn't know how to handle this, and so I needed a day. Thank you for your patience. Can you explain to me, from your perspective, what happened, or whatever? It really helps to like slow it down, and make it to where you've taken care of yourself and you've already kind of figured out how I'm going to handle this kind of ahead of time.
Absolutely, and it's again so important, because in that moment when we're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, we cannot think logically, rationally, with reason, with concentration. And so really we do need to sleep on it, take a few hours, whichever one it is, right? But taking that space to let yourself come back down from that, right? And again, rest and relax so that we don't feel emotional overwhelmed, so that we can think rationally, logically, prepared, think from a place of cool and calmness and not crisis mode, right?
And if you were somebody that was listening to somebody, or like what we're kind of trying to get to at the end of this interview is to say, okay, what does it really take to be a leader in an industry where you're different? You know what I mean? What does it take to be a leader? And so if they're constantly, barking, or if they're constantly stressed out, or if they're constantly coming at you, or versus somebody who is calm, calculated, patient, they listen a lot. What type of leader would you want to work with? Someone that's, like I said, calm and they're thoughtful and they are solution focused, versus someone who's on the other side and they just, what do you say, use their reptilian brain and react.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it causes mistakes and it causes a lot of hurt. And, we can't, as a good leader, I think that the biggest thing is to hone your skills on being able to control your emotions.
Absolutely.
We as intelligent, modern, professional humans, we have the ability to be able to lead by treating other people how we want to be treated. So that provides, or that requires, a lot of thought. You have to slow down and look at the other person and try to go into their shoes, essentially, look through their lens and go, okay, what are they going through? What could they have been going through today? How can I best listen and best get the best plan together to have everybody win together? And that takes, all of these things that we're kind of going over, which I think all are encompassing in self-care. Because if your glass is half empty, you can't overflow into somebody else's cup. As a leader,
Absolutely.
You have to be able to take care of yourself first. And then once you have that taken care of, your love meter's filled up or whatever, you're overflowing, then you're going to be able to be more solution focused and work on other people's behalf and give more. There was a book called The Go Giver, that the biggest thing that part of leadership, I believe too, is just like a heart, whenever you take in oxygen and then you expel oxygen or CO2, your heart contracts and expands. And so you can't contract without expansion. You can't have expansion without contraction. You have to have one to have the other. You have to also be able to give to receive fully. So part of being a leader, I believe, is being able to give, and you can't give unless yourself is taken care of first. So you do have to deal with all these things internally, and be in control of your emotions, be in control of your reactions, because stoicism is also another part of this, is that you can't not control other people's reactions, other people's thoughts, other people's perceptions of you or their actions. And since you can't change those things, but you can change your thoughts, perceptions, words, actions. So that's where to focus,
Absolutely. The only thing you can control is yourself.
Right.
And that's what matters. Absolutely. If we taking one thing from this, right, I can only control my thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and actions. And that's where it needs to go, not anybody else, right?
Right.
I couldn't agree more.
Because people, I think they tend to live on expectations, and your whole life will be a letdown if you do that.
Sure.
You have to I just go into a situation and don't expect anything unless I'm expecting it of myself, because I know that I can achieve that, or I know that I can have that conversation, or I know that I can email someone enough times to get this point across, or whatever. I can do that. But yeah, you can control yourself, and I think that understanding makes a pretty good leader. Megan, on closing thoughts, what would you say would be the biggest things that someone who wants to be a leader should really start focusing on when it comes to focusing on themselves?
I really think when it comes to being a leader, the first thing, focusing on yourself, turning inward, and just really learning yourself. Do I have defenses? How do I react? What are my thoughts, feelings, experiences that shape my beliefs? Like really getting to know yourself, and then seeing what do I need to change, right? There's always going to be things. Nobody's perfect, right? Because that's the first step to being a good leader. I feel like if we don't ever do that self-reflection, that self-inventory, we won't even know any of where we're at in any of these things we're talking about. And we have to know where we're at to know to get better, because like you said, a good leader is patient. They're calm. They don't react. They're thoughtful. They, all those things, and they're taking care of themselves to be able to give back to others. And the first step in that is self-inventory, right? Getting to know myself and my thoughts and beliefs and feelings that shape my world, that shape my view in which I see the world, right? So that's what I would say.
I agree. There's so much that just spending time trying to work through all of it that I had, like, you don't know what you don't know, so until you start digging in, I've been kind of amazed. And then being able to be aware of, oh, that's where that thought came from, or that's where that verbiage I use came from that I don't believe in, and that's not me, to then be able to go, okay, well, here's my true self, and this is how I want to behave every day. But you got to be aware of it first. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Megan, if any of our listeners or anyone watching wants to get a hold of you after this, or wants to find some more resources on, I guess, self-inventory, how could they do that?
So good question. So I think, obviously you could just go to the Turning Point website. We're a great resource. I think just in general, although we're sexual assault, we also see, not only sexual assault victims, but friends and family. So pretty much anyone, right? Statistically, everybody knows a sexual assault survivor. So I think that's a great resource. But you know what else I think is a really great resource? And I think we're going to be surprised when I say this. Pinterest and Instagram. So if you just go and put in these key phrases we're talking about, self-love, especially imposter syndrome, just these key things we're talking about, leadership, all these things. If you looked up, I'm like blanking, but just all these key phrases that we've said, you get so many just like really quick, in-depth little tidbits of information, exercises, ways to help, self-inventory, ways to take self-inventory. And it's a really great free resource that you can start doing yourself without like talking or seeing to a professional first necessarily, right? I do it all the time. I look up things all the time because I like to share things like that, like these little snippets of information that are so important, and they're put in this cute little picture, and boom, I can see it, take that information in, and it means something to me, right? Versus reading a book. Obviously, books are great too, but again, just those are really quick ways to start to get an idea and reminders for ourselves. So,
Megan, this has been a great session. Thank you so much to you for taking time out of your super busy schedule to go through some of these things. It's just really important, I think, to have other people listen to a third party, and not just me. Obviously, I have my lens and the life that I've lived and the things I've been through, and everybody's got their different lens. So I just really appreciate you taking the time today. And if anybody is looking for more information, we actually have a link to Megan that's in our app, the SheVest app. So if you go onto the App Store and look for the SheVest app, her information will be in there. So we'll see you guys again. And Megan, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Kaylee, for having me.